What's up, people? Um, how's everyone doing today on the old Facebook, D Live, and now YouTube? Give me 1 second. Like most people right now, we are just in the lockdown, and that's why we're here to talk about this lockdown and this double standard. Now that it's come out that a lot of people from the government have not complied with their own orders, and this is where the hypocrisy of the entire situation becomes apparent. We have a very clear sorry, cats. We have should have no more distractions here, so I will leave those distractions as may be. I just want to thank everyone on D Live. I just reached 200 followers, so thank you very much for following me. If you're watching this on Facebook, go get a D Live account. It's dlive.com. I'm sure you'll be able to figure out the process. Once you figure out the process, it's just basically a different type of streaming account, and it allows you to kind of okay, the I Saw You Live discount code I am making live today, the 4th of January. It is live from now until the next 90 minutes. So that is live. I Saw You Live 20. I got a few t-shirts left. Go check it out. We got our NATO identifier code on them. I Saw You Live 20. I'm going to put that in here once we get through all this stuff. And the reason a little bit for the delay too is because it lets other people get in so they don't miss this, as a lot of people seem to always want to watch me live. Keep in mind, you can always watch it on the replay, so just because you missed me live doesn't mean you're going to miss the message, and that's more to the point of it. That's what the message is. So let's get to this. I think myself, like a lot of Canadians, have got a lot of questions right now, particularly in Alberta. Jason Kenney, under the direction of Dina Henshaw, has suggested that we can't even visit our own families during the Christmas holiday. The World Juniors could play hockey. Police, well, I guess since the ocean incident in Calgary, cops haven't really seemed to have been enforcing too much of those bylaws. However, we've seen it across Canada. New Year's Eve celebration kind of brought to an end violently by QPP. And then we cannot forget Calgary lost a member of its community over the holiday here. 2020 could probably not get any worse for the Calgary Police Service. I'm sure there is a large community within Calgary who are feeling the effects of that incident. That being said, though, we now have to look at what our politicians are doing here, and they are obviously not following direction. They are flying, and it's not illegal to travel. However, when you tell people not to travel, you should be following the same rules. The hypocrisy here is fucking disgusting. But more so, it alludes to this, that if we are really in this public health crisis, COVID-19, where everyone needs to get vaccinated, COVID-21, etc., why are we still allowed to travel? Why are people allowed to leave here and go to Mexico, wherever it is, and come home when you can't have a small business open, when you are not really able to visit your family? Like, it's illegal for me to go from this house to another person's house and have some sort of social gathering. But you can travel and have social gatherings with strangers that you've never met before, ever one time, outside of your bubble. People brainwashed into believing that because world juniors can fly here from all around the world and they're inside a bubble, and that's okay, that it's totally okay for them to do this. But your own family, who can tell you if they are sick and are likely within some sort of bubble, you can't see them or you'll be fined. Black Lives Matter protesters can violate public health orders and protest in the summer, violating social distancing protocols. Police do not target, fine, or oppress the organizers. Try to stand up in front of City Hall and against the lockdowns and support your small business. You'll be fined $1,200, but meanwhile, the people you're protesting against are likely traveling around the world to exotic destinations to enjoy family and friends on the beach with some cocktails, some Mai Tais maybe even. What are we going to do about this? I mean, you have a very clear violation of these health orders. Are the police going to fine these people $1,200 for traveling? Likely not. It's kind of and I was just going to say that Pat King brought this up. He is going to court. What I find interesting, December 19th, Alberta was taken to court by several business owners and associations. But the Alberta government needed 90 days to prove that they could have a lockdown. So, what are we going to do here as citizens? Justin Trudeau is probably still in Barbados. Who the fuck knows where that guy is? You can flight track his phone or his plane, and it looks like, yeah, he flew to Barbados. You got Alberta local politicians, like, we're not just talking one or two. We're talking about a dozen that we know of. And that's the thing, that we know of. And there's probably likely many more that we don't know of. So what are we going to do? When does this tyranny now become I guess the best way to put this is, when do these politicians now become accountable for this tyranny? Like, it is clear that there is a double standard, that there is some sort of agenda happening here. There's nothing that is really going to happen unless we start to, as voters, as the public, as the people that these politicians work for. Let's be clear. We don't work for politicians. Politicians do not have my ultimate obedience, nor do we have to give them an ultimate obedience. They are servants of the public, and the public is us. And it's pretty clear right now that these public servants are fucking this up royally. I mean, Justin Trudeau's government looks like a high school model parliament. It's pretty much how it acts. You have people in charge of health ministries that are fucking graphic designers. You have a foreign nationalist in charge of our health right now. That's Theresa Tam. She's not a Canadian citizen. It is not a Canadian citizen. We have to fucking start to really wake up and not only hold these politicians accountable, but demand that we have a better government system in place. Okay? One that actually looks out for the best interests of Canadians, not global nationalists, or globalists, I should say, that are infiltrating the Canadian military, the Canadian government, the Canadian business plan. I mean, I was just driving down Calgary the other day and I saw this fucking Chinese party, Communist Chinese Party of Canada, being driven by people wearing CCP masks. Just propaganda in the streets. The car behind it saying that CCP does not equal Canada. CCP equals faith, strength, unity. Like, just complete and utter garbage. Shit that should not be within our Canadian society. And we have these immigrant nations that have come here with their fucking values. And I feel that the de-assimilation of our own culture is our fucking doom. That we are in this position where we have to give up our own identity in order to accommodate somebody else's inconvenience. And let's be clear here. If you immigrate to Canada, you come here to be Canadian. And contrary to Justin Trudeau's statements, Canada has a core identity. We 100% do. Canada is not a post-nationalist state. These are things that perhaps politicians in the past have put forth, but these are not the will of the people, okay? This is not what Canadians want. And what I mean by Canadians is the multi-generational Canadians that moved here in the early part of the 1900s. Now, regardless of your colonial beliefs, I am fucking have deep respect for the natives. I believe that they were mistreated by the Canadian government, not by the people who live here. I believe that the citizens that share the same communities as these Indigenous peoples understand the pride and respect that these people have for their own country, which is Canada. Let's be clear here, the Canadian government, a liberal government under Wilfrid Laurier, made it so that natives, if they wanted to vote, had to give up their First Nations status, and so that they could be recognized as citizens. All the people seem to hate John A. Macdonald, but John A. Macdonald was, in fact, the first prime minister to allow natives to vote without having to give up their
their native status, again changed by a liberal named Wilfrid Laurier. Funny enough, part of the Laurentian elite, same as fucking Justin Trudeau. So in fact, Canada has a history of liberal colonial ideas destroying the citizens and the cultures that live here. I'm looking at some of the comments here. Like some of them have no these reserves have no water, clean water for like the last quarter of a century. Yet Justin Trudeau has managed to find money to fund gender studies in some African countries, which we all know are like that money is going not to anything other than probably warlords to feed their corruption. Sonia, where did you move from? I guess is the better question. I'm just reading some comments here. If you look on the comments in Facebook, you're going to be able to see many people agree. Thanks for suggesting I look pro. There's a lot of people on here. And if we say anything, we're racist. Fuck that. I agree. Just because I'm a nationalist doesn't mean I'm a racist. Canada has a long tradition of allowing other cultures the ability to exercise their freedoms within a collective community respectfully. And what's happening now is our traditions, the traditions that this country was founded on, are being treaded on deeply by people who do not understand core Canadian identity, by people who are brainwashed to believe that they are now able to keep the same fucking corrupt bullshit and non-ethical values, let's say, within our communities. And what I mean by that is, let's just look at Edmonton in a certain area, and if we look at the crime rate around 107th Street, you'll see a drastic increase of crime and drug-related crime there. Coincidentally, I guess, it's where the predominantly Somali community within Edmonton lies. Now, I'm not going to suggest that Somalis are bad people. There's bad people everywhere. But what I am going to suggest is that the values of the country of Somalia are not on the same standard as ours. And I believe that a failure in our immigration system to address the proper terms of Canadian citizenship have allowed for several communities, not just within Calgary, Edmonton, to experience this sort of violence, cultural violence that is imported here. I mean, let's just take a look at the incident on New Year's Eve in Calgary. Two kids who are first generation Canadian, their parents being the immigrants to this country, and two kids who obviously have not learned the proper values and rules and morals within this community. Now, I don't have a great love for the police service or police in that matter. It's not a fucking, it's not a new thing. In fact, my respect for the police continues to decline as they continue to become more and more two-faced in their enforcement of the criminal code. However, I would never harm a cop. I can't see that being a reasonable option, particularly in Canada, where if you had a warrant for your arrest for assault, you would be out the next day, inconvenienced to maybe 12 hours, and then in court for a long period of time, and likely to not even get anything more than some sort of convoluted community service. So, I may not respect the police, and because the rule of law in this country is broken, it appears that there is a separate standard for certain groups and certain elites within the country, and then there's a standard for the white nationalists, the white males, and the poor. And it seems that that divide increases dramatically more and more as police become more Orwellian in the application of the authority of these new laws being put in place. But I don't wish harm upon fucking any human being on this earth. And I was taught as a child in this country, a Western Canadian, a very rebellious sort of spirit that we may not trust our government. We may not ever agree with what the government has to say. We may not trust the police, and we do not have to necessarily respect them on all levels. However, most Canadians are taught to not harm the police or just kind of do what they're told to do, because you can just hire a lawyer and pretty much, be okay as far as you can be okay when you violate the criminal code. So there is no need to put violence upon police. However, this respect for authority is not taught all across the board, and the saturation of Canadian identity with foreign influence, not only in government, but in cultural identity, but in our schools, in almost every facet of our lives. As Canadians, we are being pushed out. We are being assimilated, as the Borg would say. Resistance is futile. And it's hard to now speak up and be proud. It's hard for me to stand up and be like, I'm a proud Canadian. I mean, my family heritage, I guess if you look at it was Métis, Scottish, Norwegian, predominantly, European ancestry. If I'm proud of that history, I am some sort of racist. But if I come from Canada, from somewhere that is not Canadian, and I bring my religion, my customs, and my traditions here, and I celebrate them, then that's okay. But if I celebrate the customs and tradition that make me Canadian, that is not okay. If I want to go see my family over Christmas, I could be possibly arrested and fined up to $1,200. But government officials can travel to warm Caribbean climates during a pandemic. We haven't even stopped travel to Mexico or anywhere else. Saying that, well, if you get these PCR tests, you'll be fine. Just lead to more false positives. Gonna leave my I'm gonna leave this video here. Sonia Dunn. I would love to do a video with you at some point as a Czech immigrant here who fled communism within the Czech Republic. I would love to bring you onto here so that we could talk and have a dialogue of what living underneath a communist regime looked like and what similarities are existing in Canada today. That's an important conversation, so don't forget to please fire me a direct message, PM me. I will do my best to get back to you soon. For everyone here on DLive, let's see, did anybody drop any diamonds on here? Yes, and for those of you who have not read George Orwell's 1984, I suggest you read it. If you're a younger person, remember that this book was written in 1930, when none of this technology existed. George Orwell was just very accurately able to predict the future. Either that or he was a time travel with Matt Goring. Somehow the Simpsons seem to be able to predict almost fucking everything we see. Again, guys, go over to badmofoco.ca. I Saw You Live 20 will be active till 1:30 today. Got a little bit of limited inventory there. If you're not signed up, sign up for newsletter. Stay in the loop with the Wooby hoodies that are coming into Canada. So we have that. Let's start holding our government more accountable, especially if you are a member of a constituent living in a riding where a member of legislative assembly, member of parliament, member of provincial parliament, or whatever your provincial government is called, because they are all called different things across Canada. Get a hold of them. Explain to them your distrust that has now been created due to their action. Explain to them that they feel that a double standard allowing them to travel but you not to visit your family is unacceptable, and that you demand their resignation, because a lot of people should. What is happening there does not just simply erode. Well, what it does there simply is erode in a already vulnerable trust the public has towards the government. And I'm just going to leave this on this note. Did you see the New Year's Eve celebrations in Wuhan, China? A year after the coronavirus with no vaccine? Think we're going to look the same way? Or is it just going to become more Orwellian in its detail? Have a good day, guys. Be safe. Happy New Year.